I remember sitting there one day with no TV, no phone, just a notepad, and like, all right, like what the fuck are we doing here? This is after 2015. I was trying to decide, am I going to compete again? Am I even going to try this again? Whatever it is. And it was just like, all right, like it really came down to like, what's the story I want to tell when I'm 50 years old? What's the story I want to tell, grandkids someday? Um, and and so I just like, all right, I'm gonna just like crack down with this. Um, because I just didn't want that feeling post 2015 games again. Just like that question, like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Because I didn't lose by much. I was right there going into the final workout. So it's like, for me, I was like, we were so close that I was like, what night of staying up late caused that? Like, was it that night that I stayed up till 3 a.m. watching Netflix? And like, if I went to bed early that night, would that have been the one thing that was enough to allow me to win the games? So I just realized I never want to have to ask myself that question again. I never want to have a what if. I want to look back and like, nope, I did it right. I got the results I wanted. Um, but then this little conversation I had with this individual, um, I think had a huge effect over time. Um, he at the time he was my accountant, like my just helping me because I'm 25, I'm making good money, and I don't know. I went from making zero to good money very quick. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm so scared of blowing it all. And so I was working with this accountant, and I remember I sent him. I went and looked at a triplex, so 3 units in a house, and I was going to live in one unit, rent out the other two. The other 2 units were enough to cover my costs and a little bit of profit and cover the mortgage. And 25 years old, I'm like, no, this is the responsible thing to do. This is the right thing to do. All those things. And this accountant was like, all right, if everything goes right, you have the dream tenants. You never hear from them a single time. They don't keep you up late at night. Anything. How much are you going to make? And I was like, I don't know, it was like 20 or 30 grand in profit off the 2 income properties. And he goes, okay, now imagine you have the worst tenants you've ever dealt with before. They call you every night at 2 a.m. They're playing music at 4 a.m. They're keeping you up at night. They're making, their hot water heater breaks, their furnace breaks. You got to repair all these things. How much is it going to cost you? And basically, he was like, if they fuck up your training so much, or they distract you from your training so much, what's it going to cost you for not winning the games? And I told him the number, and he goes, yeah, exactly. He's like, you make your living competing. He's like, properties, books, all these other opportunities, they'll be there when you're done competing. But he's like, you make your money competing, go fucking compete. Do nothing else. And I just like I was took it to heart. I was like, okay. So I just remained living in my parents' basement as long as I could. Drove shit. I spent no money. I tried to have zero fucking distractions at all. I tried to have zero living expenses, everything. Because I wanted 100% of my attention to go to competing. And it was just like with the trust that nope, all that stuff is still going to be there. I can still invest in real estate and have income properties, but I'm just going to do it in 5 years, not today. So whether that's right or wrong, I'm sure there's other opinions on it of like when and how you should do that stuff. But that was the approach I took. I just put all of my eggs into one basket. I just saw the opportunity I had in front of me, and I was just like, okay, time to capitalize.
It's a hell of an
That's
accountant.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and it's so cool. I mean, you hear just stories of these elite athletes, like the Kobe Bryants, the Brady's, the Frasers. You guys, it seems so like obvious to you, but Matt, that is so unique, and like that humility and maturity you had in that moment to just go all in, laser focused on one effort. The accountant definitely, I think, gave you great advice, but you obviously harnessed it, and part of that was your doing too. And I think that's what's so cool about talking to guys like you. And if there's any lesson for maybe some of the younger viewers, once you have kids and family and stuff, it is much more difficult to do things like this, right? And so if you're 25 right now listening and you don't have any kids yet, and there's something you want to go after, newsflash, now is the freaking time. Slide your chips in and freaking do it. Because Matt, imagine if you had
Oh,
your daughter at 24, right?
this
Is Matt Fraser a 5-time champ if you have a daughter when you're 24? Do you think
so I don't think it's guaranteed no, but
it would have been different though?
being
It would have been harder.
being a champ, I wouldn't be the father that I am right now.
There you go.
Not even fucking close. Not even fucking close. Um, and that was another big thing that I knew. So like once again, I had an example of my parents as athletes. My parents went to the 76 Olympics, then they won the senior world championships 4 times. They were pairs figure skating. And but I never saw them skate. Like not once did I go to the rink with them at 4 in the morning or like watch them compete or anything like that. I knew my parents as my dad was dad. He was a stay-at-home father, and my mom was a family physician. That's what I knew. And so I always heard the stories of like them. It was my dad always telling the stories of, before my mom went into medical school or before they had kids, and the stories of them competing, traveling, training, all that stuff. And then the day that they decided, like, okay, it's time for mom to go to school, my dad got a job. My dad paid for my mom's school, pumping gas. And, but it was like, as soon as they were like, all right, we're done competing. Now we want a family. It was like, boom. They weren't trying to do both at the same time. So that was my example growing up. Um, but also, like, I know the schedule I kept when I was competing. And it's like, no, I couldn't imagine being away from my kid for that long. Like like I'm sure just like you guys, like we travel all the time for work. And I remember the first trip I took, it was planned for so long. It was with Black Rifle Coffee. We were going on an elk hunting trip, and it had been booked for so long. And it's like Eddie's like a month old, and I was like, oh God, like all right, I'm going on this trip. And I was supposed to be gone 8 days, and then I think I made it 4 because I was like, what am I doing? Like I busted my ass and worked ridiculous hours. I had to do ridiculous things for years and years so that I didn't have to miss these moments. No, I don't have to go on these trips. I don't have to miss these moments. I don't like that was a big motivator when I was doing it. I was like, no, like I never want to have to work on a weekend again. Like, no, if I have plans with the kids, I have plans with the family,